Are we on? What's that? When do we start?
Now.
Oh, we do. Yes.
11:30 to 12.
11:30 to 12. Hi, folks. My name is Eric Prestwood. For those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, it's nice to meet you. I am a SE for Cisco. I support health and human services. Before I kick it over to the folks you really want to see today, I wanted to present a scenario that will be very familiar to many of you. I'm uniquely positioned to present this scenario because directly prior to Cisco, I was actually on the customer side. So imagine, if you will, you are a network operator supporting, let's say, a whole state, and maybe you have sites that are geographically disparate across, say, that whole state. And there are several of those that you have redundant infrastructure at. And inevitably, a device on one of those sites, you get a notification that it is unreachable. So you go through your normal process to go ahead and investigate what's going on with that device and your persistence. So you spend a couple of hours really digging in, trying to figure out what's going on, but inevitably you deem the device to be remotely unreachable. Per your procedure, that means you have to get a tech on site. It's not a site that's close enough that you can go, and that tech isn't available for about 3 days. So at this point, you are sitting with the device down for about 3 days trying to get someone on site. Eventually, the tech does get on site, and you're lucky enough that they get on site with the correct console cable, the correct accessories to be able to access the device, and that doesn't always happen. They get on site, and they go through the process of troubleshooting, and together you realize the device is locally unreachable as well. So this kicks off your process for having to go ahead and go through the process of an RMA. Now that RMA process, you've got 2-day support, so it's another couple of days. Now that means that tech has to leave and come back. Now you're looking at, I think, 4 or 5 days, almost a week worth of downtime. Luckily, the tech does get back on site, and with that RMA, drop ship to the site. And once they get everything installed, you're looking for a backup config to make sure you have everything in place and everything is working. And you realize you have a config that's fairly recent, 18 months, because documentation is hard. So you get everything working. You look at there's a redundant device on site, and you take a look at that device to try to validate the config, and you think everything's working, but you're not entirely certain. I present this scenario. It's kind of a longer one, but I present it to show all of the friction points that are involved with that process. And the one thing I want to leave you with before I hand you over here is there's a better way. And with that, I'll hand over to Dan and Mark. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Nice to see everybody today. My name is Dan, the account executive for networking, and my peer Mark is our solution engineer for Cisco networking. Thanks for joining us today. So if we go to the next slide. One of the things that Eric talked a lot about was something that we've been dealing with for decades, where there's just a lot of friction. We recognize it. We've known it for a while. And one of the things that one of our COO of Cisco mentioned at, of all places, the AI Summit this year, was that infrastructure is too complex. What we need is something that's plug and play for the enterprise. So we need agility. We just need to move quickly through some of these things. A lot of these things that Eric was talking about was it just takes too long. So with our new platforms, and we've announced new switches, new access points, we're not going to announce those again today, but we're going to talk more about what it looks like to manage them from cloud management. Can we go to the next slide? If there's a couple things that I hope you remember after today on your way back to the office, or if you're going home afterwards, one of them is simplified operations. The reason why it's so important that we simplify the operation is because what's coming with the AI era ahead of us, there's a lot of investment being made in it, and without a more agile, simple way, those investments could be undermined. The second thing that I think is really important that you remember is we talk a lot about unified management. You may not hear it as much right now, but over the next year or so, you're going to hear this term unified, unified, unified. And what that means is that we've got a couple different ways that you can manage your network. We're trying to make it easier to hop from one to the other, so it seems more seamless. So what I think the scenario that I'm envisioning is over the last probably 10 years, I've had people, managers, directors call and say, Dan, we can't find enough people to operate our Cisco network. We're looking for the right people. If they're a cloud managed network, then they're finding people with experience managing on-prem, vice versa. So we have all these people with diverse Cisco experience, but they don't have the right network experience. So what we're trying to do is unify the management plane so that as you go out there and look for people, you're not having to ask 2 or 3 questions deep. Okay, which experience with Cisco networks do you have? And then the third one is build once, deploy across. So I don't know how much time we're gonna spend on this one particularly, but when you look at, for example, the AI assistant, it looks the same across all the platforms that we built. So we're not looking to rebuild an AI assistant for each different portal that you're in. You basically log into Cisco and you have an AI assistant there to help you, and that AI assistant can work with other AI assistants well. So this is commonly known as scalability, but a lot of times we hear it in the engineering teams as build once, deploy across. Can we, next slide? And you're going to see this help us as we transition into the AI era. So the cloud era is not something that we're leaving, it's just something we're building upon. And one of the things that we're hoping that you recognize is that this cloud era and cloud management is how we're going to have that agility moving forward. Next slide. One of the things that is important when you think about what Cisco's doing from a network perspective, we're focusing on 3 key areas. One of them is operational simplicity, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. You have heard us talk about infusing security into the network. We're not going to spend a ton of time on that today, although that is one of our key pillars. We do talk about scalability and how what we're building here is something that we want to be able to scale throughout the Cisco technologies. Next slide. This is something that you've seen before, you'll see again. Unifying the Catalyst and Meraki platforms is where this motion comes from. You'll notice that we subdued a lot of those brand names, and let's just talk about Cisco management, Cisco licensing, and Cisco hardware. So essentially what you want to be able to do is get to the point where you just want to order my Cisco switches. We talked about this briefly, different types of management with Cisco, and what we want to be able to do is unify these so it doesn't feel like 3 different companies when you log in. So if you log into the dashboard or use CLI, you can use it all in the dashboard, and it should be very easy for you. Or if you're jumping from there's a lot of complex organizations that have a hybrid deployment with Dashboard or Catalyst Center. We don't want it to look and feel like 2 different experiences. It is one experience. And you'll notice that as we do that, we'll build once and we'll deploy across. And this will start to look like a single management experience for you. Okay, next. And this is what a lot of our customers are starting to look like. We've got some local CLI requirements where Catalyst Center or the cloud aren't really going to work as well. And then we've got the majority, let's say you've got 90% of your sites running through cloud management, simplified operation, but you've got some of the organization that require the Catalyst Center cluster and how that's going to look and how that's going to work together. And this is really what the unified management vision is built to provide. I think Mark has some things to share around what this is going to look like, Mark.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I'll get into showing a demo of what we are just reviewed there. And let me get into my correct view. Yuli, you hearing me fine, right? Just say yeah or no. Cool. All right. So I gave away some of my secrets here right off the bat. But anyway, for those that are new to the cloud dashboard, I want to go over a few of the highlights of the product. for those of you who are already our existing cloud dashboard users, I'm going to show you some new stuff that has been coming out and a little preview of some other stuff. It's going to be announced at Cisco Live next month in there. Won't give away all the secrets, but a couple little teasers for you. But anyway, so general overview, right? So cloud dashboard, cloud networking, you'll hear Meraki dashboard, Cisco dashboard, the management dashboard, the Catalyst dashboard. I know we have a lot of different names, but when we say dashboard, we are talking about this web interface that will give you the visibility and configurability over multiple locations, all organized into what we call networks. So from a organizational view, that is kind of basically your instance, right, of the cloud networking. And then inside there, you'll have networks. And these networks could be broken up into anything that you need, right? It's just a text-based, but it'll break out the configuration into either devices or whole sites. A lot of times people will just have locations in here. As you see example here, I have San Jose and Austin and Chicago and a bunch of different sites all listed in here. And from one single view, I can see the status of all my different types of devices that are out there. So the dashboard can configure multiple different types of devices all into a single view right here. So, we have, our routing capabilities and our SD-WAN, as you can see under security SD-WAN, we have our switching, our wireless, our cameras, right? Our security, which is our SASE configuration, our policy. If you want to have cloud-based authentication, we have the ability to have a cloud-based authentication server and policy server. Many other people maybe use on-prem policy servers like ICE, but we have the option of using both or one or the other. Some people who do not have an ICE instance could benefit from a cloud-based authentication server from there. But so the nice thing about this is that we can go in and look at a site, and then from there we can see what is going on across the entire area or that entire network itself. So one thing that's kind of cool is a topology map, right? So you can see in this network that's called San Francisco, this is our San Francisco location, right? We have multiple devices out there. We have a lot of endpoints, right? We have our cameras plugged into switches. We have our access points. We have other switches in there, our MXs, all the different products can show up in a topology view. The other cool thing is that we also give you a layer 3 view. So if you want to look at from a routing view of what is in your network, and some people maybe have a very small, like a small site, it's probably just a flat, a couple L2 VLANs collapsed into a switch connected to a router of some type. Others may have a very different, larger deployment of routes across your network. You can see here we have, a single subnet going out and across in a couple switches, a couple IDFs, right? And then we have different VLANs hanging off of there, or different types of endpoints going in there. And we also have our WAN routing sites, so our VPN tunnels, or our SD-WAN, those remote sites coming into this site, and it's sharing route information from those remote branches into our routing table at the local site there. So we also can drill into, seeing information based on the network. So a lot of times we kind of care about is the clients, right? The endpoints, what is going on with the devices connected to our network. So in a single page, we can see both wired and wired devices. So you see some wireless clients, we have wired clients in here. And based on those, we can also see the information about that device. From a high-level network view, we can see all the applications that are being used at the network level. We also can see what applications are being used down at the client level too. So you can see here we have a lot of AP communications, Windows Update, right? Google Play, software updates. Our life, right, is all about endpoint updates, is usually our big hitters of applications out there. So looking at a client, let's say someone calls in and Sam here is having a problem. You can go in and look at what is going on with that client. And we can see over time, and I'm looking at the past day, what is going on with this client. And they've had, on and off times on the network. And you kind of see where they have the green lines of connectivity. You can see their usage in here. Again, we can see their applications. Now, this is a demo system with synthetic clients, so the applications are all synthetic data. And of course, we're actually creating problems in here to make it a nice demo too. So not typically you will see this kind of choppy network connectivity, but we are inducing that. But the question is like, what is going on, right? So why are we having these issues? We can go and click on the timeline when they are having a problem. So I kind of zoomed in into a moment of time where they were connected and they weren't connected. And then you can see on this little area, we have an AI information about that. The why is the client not connecting? And probably small print for some of you, but basically we have a failed connection to the SSID called this SFO.management, right? They're on this access point, and during authentication, because the password was incorrect, they were not able to get in there. So wrong passphrase was used for their pre-share key at that time. The other cool thing though is that we can do automatic packet captures. If you really want to get into the detail of tracking a device and why there's a problem, we can do packet captures. And then the other thing on top of that is that instead of you reviewing that packet capture and figuring it out, hanging out in Wireshark, we let AI go and figure it out for us and shows us now visually what was going on with that packet capture and where was the breakdown of information. Where did it break down in that? And at the very top, it gave us a summary of why we were having four-way handshake problems. We were having repeated de-authentications. And this is where it's saying that, hey, the WPA key authentication was not, the pre-share key was not working. So that's where it follows back to the password or the pre-share key passphrase was misconfigured on the device. Again, we're kind of creating this problem, right? Because you're like, hey, it was working for a minute there and then it stopped. But we had the client doing a little change on his back end with a script that will go and keep messing up the Wi-Fi config and then breaking it and reconnecting it and stuff. Another cool thing too, though, is that we get to see is roaming, right? A lot of times people complain about roaming issues. We will tell you throughout any time, you can go and search into very specific time. I'm right now at a 24-hour view. I can go and zoom in with my little window of information to zoom in further, but you can see where that client is moved from one side from one AP to the next AP. And we can tell you how good that event was or not. We're getting some of this, not co-channel, but different frequency jumps here. We're going 2.4 to 5, then 5 to 2.4. So we're getting this ping-ponging event that's happening at this location or for this device. So now we're kind of flagging some of those as information that has, hey, we have suboptimal roams, right? So that's what that little yellow flag is. We have a lot of good roams. We have some we had 4 client disconnects. So get information about that device. We can also see this information in the timeline. When had they connected? When did they didn't connect? Successful connections, failed connections, right? So the nice thing about this cloud is that no matter if this is a wireless device or a wired device, and it's all anywhere in your network. So your network is across your switches, across all of your APs in that building, right? We are tracking this information and giving it to you in a very easy to view, concise. Basically, someone calls with a problem, here's how you get straight to troubleshooting that problem or looking at what the issue is in there. Maybe switching gears a little bit. Let's say, hey, let's about the health of my network. I understand this is kind of small, but I'm going to do is this is the Syslog. So a lot of times, I think some of us who are very used to CLI, we would kind of want to go in and take a look at, hey, what's going on with the switch? What is the switch comparing back? And so I have a bunch of switches that are sending data to me that's complaining about stuff right here. But, instead of that, let's just have AI go and summarize that for us. And it will go in and then read that all those logs in there, and then tell us what is going on. So a little bit config updates, but we have multiple auth passed. That's good. We have some changes. So this one is not really anything big deal, but we do have any big deal. But we have a compliance violation with an RSA key pair, right? So that, but anyway, it will go in and summarize all the problems that are happening in that area. One cool thing is like in one of my other switch labs here, I have a view for, let's take a look at mine, because this one is one where it's actually showing some kind of actual problems. Like I have a device that won't connect to the network. So I can go and say, hey, summarize the log for me. And this guy will go in and tell me that, hey, I have isolated radius invalid VLAN. So the device, this client device, go and blow it up a little bit more here. This client device here that's doing 802.1x is having EAP failures, right? So it's having a lot of problems connecting in there on that one port. So something to investigate in there. And I didn't have to go through and scroll through this log or anything to go and find that information, right? In just a few seconds, I was able to get that information using the AI tools that are available to do searching, formatting, sorting, right, and viewing all that information. So we have let's see, we've talked about the thing. So centralized configuration and stuff. So when we're talking about configuring once and deploying across, right? So a lot of common configurations for our network devices can all be done just at the network layer, right? So we can say, hey, I want to send traffic device, collect information out to this server out here for traffic analysis. We're doing location scanning, right? We're doing some client tracking. I know client tracking is probably a bad word, but this is how we get filled that client database, though, of course, is using IP device tracking and other features in the switches and the APs to get that in there. How are we doing authentication, device configuration, right? So do we want to have access to the local password or not, or be able to go into the CLI of a switch? Do we turn that on or off? Do we have, reporting, Syslog servers out there, SNMP controls, firmware, software updates, right? This is all done in one single page, but it applies to all of our devices that are in there. So I set that once, but all these settings will be applied to all these switches here that's in here and all my wireless access points that are out there also. So getting down to the device level, right, it's going to be very, very specific to the device itself. So in here, like wireless, we have a wireless network. We have all these APs join this network. We told it to be in this network. We can look at, information on the device itself, right? And we can see the current clients on this one particular access point. We can see the health of the device. We can see information about the radios. How is DHCP, DNS is working? How are channels going? Are we meshing to other devices that are using mesh? And again, what other clients have been on this access point? But that's really drilling down to the device level itself. But when it comes to configuring things like, hey, I want to configure an SSID for my entire building, right? I used to go to one place. I deploy it here. I set up my SSID. I go and modify how I want to set up my authentication and radios and stuff to connect in there. And then once I set it once, again, it deploys across all the APs. It's a single click to go anywhere for that. Now, switching. So we have also switches can be all, again, done at deploy once, deploy parts. We have, I could go down into an individual switch itself. And from this switch, I can go and configure, a port on there, let's say. Of course, that's a very tedious way of configuring, but if I have a one-off thing that I need to do, I could do that from this one location. The other thing is I could see all the ports that are on this switch and seeing what is connected via CDP and LLDP on these switches. How are they configured? Are they trunk or access layer or access port, access single VLAN versus trunked VLAN, right? But the other thing that's kind of cool is, again, don't think of as a switch, or instead of thinking as port configuration down to a single switch, think it as, hey, I want to configure ports across the entire network. So instead of going in and saying, hey, I want to configure individual ports in there, I can go and configure ports across multiple switches in on everywhere. So let's say I want to pick 23. So for all these switches on port 23, I can go through and say, hey, I want to go and change all of those ports across. I don't have rights to do that, but anyway, I can go and change and modify multiple switches in one single dashboard here. And it'll give us that same pop-up where I can say, hey, I want these all to be printer ports for some reason. I can also tag those ports so that later I can search for, show me all the printer ports on this network. That can all be done from a single place from there. So, things that are kind of more new that are coming in there. Dan had mentioned common hardware and the ability to add devices to the dashboard that may need CLI, and you just want to have them in the dashboard for more about visibility and monitoring and seeing the clients in there, but all in a single place. So now we are starting to add in new products that are what we call device mode. And some of them can be cloud mode too. But right now we're expanding the portfolio, IE switches. So for some departments that are using a lot of industrial Ethernet switches or industrial routers, they're probably using CyberVision for that. But for us, for some other departments that really just need a one or two individual industrial AP because they're putting a switch in a kind of a more rugged area, right? It's exposed to heat. It needs to be more. It's put in an outdoor enclosure, or it's it's in areas that doesn't have great ventilation, or needs to be sealed so that it may get wet at time. We are now able to add those devices into the dashboard and configure them as extensions to our network in the outside areas or into the more areas that need more hardened devices out there. So one thing I want to show. So one thing that we were talking about again is, hey, we have devices that may be CLI. We do not want cloud. They're going to be managed. We want to have that visibility, but be able to see them all in the same place in the dashboard itself. So we have this configuration source capability now. So what this means is that we can have a switch that is in cloud mode, or it could be in device mode. And the difference between the two is that cloud mode basically means it's running iOS XE, but it's all configured by GUI, right? By web GUI in the dashboard itself. Device mode APs or device mode switches, right, are configured by the CLI. The configuration, as you see, its configuration source is device. It means the configuration is done on the device itself. It's done by CLI. So we still have monitoring capabilities. I can tell you which ports are up and down, what is connected to that port, right? I have an AP plugged into it. I have configuration settings in here. I have it on VLAN 2 and stuff. But if I want to make a change to this switch, for those that need to have a switch that still wants full CLI, cloud is just great for visibility, but I still want the switch to have its own config, right? I have everything all sitting right here. I got it show run, right? I can show CDP neighbors. I can, so I got my read only CLI, but the other thing I have too is my config T, and I can go into an interface and make a change right here on the fly. 22 description test, right? I can go and make that change in there, right mem. It's all saved. Everything's in there. Oh, not especially if you spell it right. And I didn't do it again. I'm just too quick. But anyway, so you can have that configuration in there. You can go and plug into the back of the switch if you want it with a console cable. You can SSH directly to it in there. But if you think about, hey, I have a switch that has an autonomous config on it, but I'm remote. I'm not going to be able to VPN into the network, right? You can do this from the beach if you wanted to, right? You can do that in here. Other cool things that we are adding or have ability to do is, so we have remote configuration. We also have configuration archive, so we can go back and see our previous configurations on the switch. We have the ability to download this configuration if we want to save it to our local computer. And then the other thing we can do is we can compare things. So we can look at config drifts in here. So this guy had some config changes done back in from there. So we had right. So I just did this test 1, 2, 3, or I did it a little while ago in the past in this older config on April, right? It didn't have it in there. This was changed yesterday in this. So that was added. Okay, something that was added and no added. So we did some IP address changes in here. So now you got to compare of the two in there. The other thing that we're adding also is the ability to do software image updates for that. So at even at the org level, I can go in and do software updates to any of my devices, both cloud and on-prem. If I want to go and schedule an upgrade for a device, let's say I want to go and upgrade this, well, we won't do that one. He's already up to date, as you can see, he's already good. This one needs an update, it's on an old version in there. I can schedule an upgrade, I can pick the time, and I can pick what release if I want to use the latest recommended or a GA, general availability release candidate, because when I needed some new feature in there, I can go and say, run that code. How do I want to do it? Pre-download upgrade. So it will go and this is an access point. So they'll upload the code on those devices and then reboot them to minimize upgrade time in there. And I can tell it when to do it. Let's do it at 1 in the morning on Saturday, right? When no one's around. So I can do that for both on-prem and for cloud-based, and coming in a few weeks, we will have it for device mode APs too. So in a single management tool, even if you want to keep your CLI, you can still now view what devices are on those switches. You can see what applications are running on there. You can see your event logs, your syslogs. You can see your configs. You can save your configs, and you can do software updates for that. Now, how do we do that in there? So this is a little walkthrough, click-through demo. I'm going to, let's paste it into, anyone can run this demo to try it at another time. I'm going to copy the URL and just put it in the chat real quick. Hold on as you see me go through that process here. But I need to go to here and up into our meeting here. Click, sorry, I have to say it out loud so I know what I'm doing. There we go. So this is just a demo app, but it's a walkthrough demo. But this is how you onboard a switch that is running CLI, iOS XE, and is able to be added to the dashboard. So how we start off is good old CLI, right? So we have a couple things. We need to be 17.15.3 or higher code. Some other models like the 9500s need to be 17.18 code. But basically we're seeing that, hey, we want to have, basically iOS XE 17.15 and higher. 17.15 and higher is what we called cloud enabled iOS XE. So inside the iOS XE, it knows how to talk to cloud. It knows how to talk to other network management devices out there single image to do that. So the first thing you can go and check, this command is in CLI, show Meraki compatibility. That's basically telling you, hey, what switches are available? Is this one compatible? And it is already saying, yes, this switch is compatible with that. All you need to do to actually make it connect to the cloud is a couple steps. First thing you do is you go into config T in there and you type in the command service Meraki connect. That will go and run. And then it will go and give it a thing here. You can do show Meraki connect in there, or just exit out and do the show Meraki connect. It will tell you that it is connected to the cloud or not. And what the thing is that we want to know is this cloud ID. So you'll see a cloud ID that's now showed in that CLI. Once we have that cloud ID, we're basically done with the switch itself. All the rest of the work is done in the dashboard itself. We go and say, click on add a switch. We're going to claim that switch just like any other Meraki device. We go and say, hey, we paste in here our cloud ID that we just got from that CLI. And then we go and say claimed devices. Then you'll see it now show up in the inventory of your organization. You say add to a network in there. And then this little question will come up and it's going to ask you, do you want it to be in device configuration mode or do you want it to be in cloud configuration mode? So this says beta in this old demo, but beta is actually no longer true. This is full general availability. We're no longer in beta. We've been doing this for 6 months now, almost a year in the dashboard itself. If you say device configuration, remember that means we are going to keep the switch, the device is the one that owns the configuration. If you say cloud configuration, again, we're doing common hardware now. So all Catalyst switches can be cloud native in the dashboard. Cloud configuration means we are going to convert that switch to a full GUI mode only in there. So if you're just now want to just test the management capability, what you do is device configuration. You put in your CLI credentials in there, you click save, right? And then we just go into that switching view that I had in there also. And now you'll see that switch has just been added. And then we go and now have the ability to see how is it connected to the dashboard. We get our cloud CLI. Those were the things that I showed you just a minute ago, right? So cloud CLI. You can have, in my setup, I had it already, I wasn't verifying password. I was using the dashboard login as credentials, but you can also have it do a double check or to re-authenticate the user to type in there. This is optional, but it can be done for it. And then of course, then we have that CLI that we were showing you. So how about, and now for a preview. So that is, that's the switches in there. Like I said, you can have a 9300, 9200, 9500s can be both cloud mode or CLI mode. We also have the ability now to add the 9610, the new 9610 and the new 9350s can be cloud mode or CLI mode. We are about later this year, we will have the 9400s and the older generation 9600s also in there. One thing we're working out, we're going to announce at Cisco Live, smart routers, right? So now if you have standalone non-SD-WAN routers, the G2s, we are also going to add those into the CLI, into device mode on the dashboard. So that's kind of a little hint at what is going on soon for it. Okay, so let's show a couple other cool things. Let's go over to London. Now the other thing is too is that sure we have all these web pages to go and look at our devices. Let's go network wide. I have my clients and stuff. But you know what? Sometimes using the menu is just too much work to do, right? So now we have the new AI assistant. So I can just ask the AI assistant for information I want to know. How about how is my network doing? Just let it go in there. It'll go and check all the assurance tabs and the health stats and everything. It will go through and gather the authorization or organization assurance scores. All right, so it's going to go off. I'm just letting this agent go and do my work for me, and then it will come back and give us a report in there. There's a question that popped up. Is there a license requirement for cloud managed switches? Right. So with two different ones right now. So we have if you had a CLI-based switch that is running DNA, that DNA license is your license to use the dashboard in there. If you have already bought, if you bought -M switches, ones that are preloaded with the cloud, usually the license is purchased with that. You don't buy a DNA license, you buy a dashboard license with it. And then with our newer devices, like our 9350s, 9610s, those come with what we call a unified license. So Dan said we're unifying licensing. The unified license that comes with Wi-Fi 7 APs and 9350 switches, that one is a single license that works in both CLI mode or cloud mode. It's a single license. That's all there is to it. The levels, essentials, if you're doing DNA, essentials gives you the visibility of clients. It gives us the swim, the event logging, all that information about what's going on with the ports in there. What is not in essentials but is an advantage is the net flow data. So if you want to see application information, you need the advantage license for that. But that's pretty much it. Kind of very similar with other, you can't turn on application views in on an essential switch anyway. So since you can't turn it on the switch, obviously you can't send us the data to populate those fields. So here's my report. So London has 77 alerts, 22 critical ones, 50 warnings in there. We've got some Ethernet speed issues in there. We've got some application performance there. We got details in there going in there. Probably another one. All right. You went, what has changed on my network since I last logged in? Right. You've been on vacation. You came back. Let's see what the other guys have been doing to my network, right? So go through and I'll go and look at the change log in there for you and go and give you a report on what has changed on the network itself in there. So you can do a lot of things about there. You can use the AI assistant to search for documentation. How do I add a switch to this network, right? It'll go and look for the documentation for you, give that information for you. How do I build, an SSID? It will tell you how to do that in there. But as it is, these agents are going out there. Here's the change log that has happened, right? So most of the change is related to the switch ports. So some people have done some switch ports. There was a Wi-Fi password change on the San Francisco network. All right, that one. If you come in and say everyone's like, "Hey, no one can connect to the San Francisco network," here we go. Someone changed the Wi-Fi password while you were gone, messed it all up. Now it's time for you to fix it yourself. Now, let's go through and try out some other little cool things in here. So we have a new feature out there. It's been out for a little bit of while. It's called automation. All right. So I have a Wi-Fi 7 AP that I have just deployed into this new network. I haven't gone and done any SSID configurations for it in there. I need to have some SSID. I need to have my standard SSIDs put onto this new network that I just created. Heck, I could have had it, had everything, nothing even done. But what I want to do is say, hey, AI assistant, run my standard workflow that goes and provisions the SSIDs on this network itself. So it's going to go and say, hey, I told it use, hey, run this workflow to provision this things. And then it's, you know, I found one of your workflows and I found some that are in the Exchange portal too. Which one was you on? I want to say run number 1 here. All right. So it's going to go through and say, okay, you're talking about this one that is going to do is get the network name and set some variables and deploy these SSIDs. And then we go, yeah, that's the one. Yes. So it's now going to say, okay, well, what was the name of the network? Well, my new network is called, in this case, Wi-Fi 7 testing. They're like, okay, so we're going to go there, Wi-Fi 7 testing. Got it. You sure you want to do this? Yes, I am sure. Thank you for asking. And then now it's going to go and say, okay, I am going to start doing this process for you. So it's going through and it's going through the code of my workflows. And it is now going to start configuring this network in here. So it was actually executed completely, right? So it's done. I go and do a refresh on this screen. You see before I had no SSIDs configured. Now I have my 2 SSIDs actually configured in there. I can go into my phone here, go in there and take a look at my SSIDs that I'm seeing out here. And I should see, let's go to other, no, don't go there, just scan. And it should start seeing these SSIDs out there, maybe. But I keep finding all my other neighbors' SSIDs. But anyway, they are being broadcast on there, as you can see, Workflow Corp, and the other one is in there, is associated there. Now, automation. So automation.
Hey, Mark?
Yep.
You did get a question. What is the process to switch from device managed to cloud managed config?
Oh, yeah. So it's actually a pretty easy process. What you do is you go into your network in there, and what you do is you delete that switch from the network. It'll still be in your organization inventory. And then you go and say re-add, you go and add it back to the network that you want it in, and it'll go back and ask you that question. You want it to be cloud or device? Right? So it'll go through back. So all you got to do is just delete it and get it back to that stage that it will go and ask that question again, which was probably like back a bunch of steps here. Wish there was a faster way. Is it even doing it? No, it's not even doing it. But anyway, back to where it goes, and it will ask you to add it back to the network. So other thing is, all right, so these workflows can be used for not only for dashboard tools, but it can be used for many other areas. So this is just a landing point to use cloud-based automation, but you can see it can actually talk to many other different products out there. You do have to write some code in theory, right? This is kind of a little easier, but I mean, at first step, this kind of looks a little daunting, right? If you don't know how to code, you're like, where do I start and everything? Well, the answer to where I want to start is, again, just tell the AI assistant. So I had did this before. I wanted to run, I've been doing that provisioning of that SSID and everything. And then I'm like, oh, well, I need, instead of me resetting that SSID or deleting the network and re-adding a network and doing all that again, how about I just write some code here to make a tool that will wipe out those configs for me automatically. But then I was like, why should I write it? Let's have the AI assistant write it. So I just said, hey, create workflow that will reset SSID configurations to default. So the AI assistant thought about it, goes, okay, here's how I would do it. Step 1, right? Get the organization name, get the network name, get the SSID number, output, reset it to default settings in there. I'm going to go, my plan is to get the organization name. Going through and thinking about all those code points that were in that workflow to do it. And then it's like going, you want me to do this or would you like to refine it? And I said, yeah, do it. They're like, all right. So I wrote the code. Do you want to import it? I said, yeah, import it. And then it created it for me. I didn't write a single line of code for this device. It wrote it all for me. I can go in here and go, hey, you actually imported this guy. Here's all the code. Here's all the variables. It did it all for me. All I had to do was click run. It asked those questions that it said it wanted to do. Hey, what is my my target, which is my dashboard, which SSID number I want to set it to. Let's go to the first one. The network name is Wi-Fi 7 testing. The organization name is, I probably could make it just a little bit cleaner. Probably could have asked it to, hey, just grab mine. But for right now, I'm just going to type it in. And I'm going to make an unconfigured SSID 1. Go and run. It's going to go do its thing. Right? It's going through, it's getting the org, it's extracting the network. It's like, oh, reset, reset, reset. I go back to my wireless and my SSID settings. And there you go. The first one's gone. I didn't have to write a stick of code to do that. I had the AI assistant do it all for me. So if there's anything you need to do, like provision, and you can make it even more complex, right? It's a prompting tool. You can ask it many questions over and over and over, but very, very quickly, I can automate configurations across multiple networks. Anything that's repeatable that you're always doing, you can just do it in the automation, have the AI assistant write the code for you, and just test it out. With that, any questions? Because I think we're almost at time.
Any questions in the room for Mark?
Mark, you might have answered it, but there was one additional question in the chat about, is there a license requirement for cloud managed switch?
Yeah, I answered it a while ago, right? It's
Okay,
part of your DNA for if you have a DNA license, right? That license is valid for it. If you're buying new switches, you get a unified license, right? That works on both. And if you ended up buying one of the -M parts, SKUs, that one, you buy a dashboard license for it.
perfect.
All right. No additional questions. So Mark. Then what? Mark, thank you for the presentation. Dan, thank you as well. And Eric, thank you for setting it up. So we look forward to seeing you next month at the next session. Have a great rest of your day. Yeah.
So before we break, can we just get a preview of what next month's session is? What's the topic again?
I'm pretty sure. I don't know.
Is augmenting agency workforce collaboration.
Augmenting agency
Workforce collaboration.
workforce collaboration.
And
That's the session next
date
week.
and time? It's Thursday at 11:30, but which Thursday again?
Third Thursday it should be.
6/18.
The 18th
18th.
at 11:30. Here.
Yep.
Or virtual.
All right. Hopefully we'll see you there. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thanks, y'all.